So, Bradley, what's the deal with these expert networks like GLG, GuidePoint, Ridgetop Research?
So these are third party companies where usually investors are trying to learn some kind of information. So they'll go to a GLG or a guide point and they will ask them to find an expert in that area of expertise so that they can learn more about either a company or an industry. Again, they're usually investors looking to make investment decisions. And so they're willing to pay really good money to talk to these experts. Over the years, given my experience at Uber, I've actually done a number of these across 4 years and made over $40,000. So I've learned a lot of tips and tricks along the way.
So, how do I get high paying calls?
There's two important keys here. The first, you have to ask for a high rate. They're likely going to tell you that you should go lower, go to $150 or $200 per hour. That's because they take a spread. So if the client is paying them $2,000, their goal is to get you to take as little as possible and keep the difference. Know that these investors are mutual funds, hedge funds, VCs. They have plenty of money, and your goal is to capture as much of that as possible. So the first key is ask for a high rate. The second key is to stay in your area of expertise. If you get something that's outside of your area of expertise, you're not going to be able to command that high rate, and you want to go as narrow and deep as possible. So ask for a high rate and stick to your area of expertise, and that's the key to high paying gigs.
Well, this group keeps asking me to lower my rate.
They're going to ask you to lower your rate. It makes sense that they would do so. I've found that if you just stand strong and tell them that this is what you need to get paid, this is what your time and value is worth, they will eventually say okay. And you might get a few fewer calls, but if your rate goes from $250 to $1,000, you would have to get one fourth the number of calls to get the same amount of money. And I found that when I increased my rate to $1,000 per hour, which is what I'm getting now, that my calls dropped a little bit, but not substantially, and I ended up making way more money.
So, they keep asking me to prorate my time.
They're going to ask you to prorate your time. They're going to block off an hour on your calendar for the call, and they'll ask you if the call only takes 30 minutes to prorate it by half. And what I've done is I've asked them that no matter what happens, that I should be paid for the full hour. In my mind, if we're blocking off an hour for our time, we should get paid for that full hour. And you may need to insist on this once or twice, but often they will agree to it, and then you'll get paid for the full hour regardless of how long the call is.
So, what do I do if I keep getting requests for calls outside of my area of expertise?
You're going to get requests in a variety of different industries, fields, different companies. If you're not an expert, I would just ignore it. You're probably not going to get chosen for the project. It's going to be a waste of your time to even apply for it. And even if you were to get selected, you're going to be pretty uncomfortable on the call because you're not going to be an expert in it. So if I were you, I would ignore all requests that are not in your area of expertise. Stick to what you know best, and really focus your time and energy on closing those high paying gigs.
So, I got asked to do a group call. How do I address that?
They do group calls, and basically what happens is they will sell a number of slots to either ask you questions, or there'll be one person asking you questions and there'll be a lot of people listening. What you can do in this case is you can ask to get paid per slot that they sell, because it's not to your advantage to do a group call and just pay you the same $1,000 per hour when you could do individual calls with every single person on the call and get $1,000 times the number of people, right? So you may not get $1,000 for every slot, but what you can do is you can say something like, give me 650 or 750 per slot that you sell. And that way it's more efficient for your time, it's more efficient for their time, and you're still capturing the majority of the value that you're giving to each individual, either company or individual that's paying to do this.
What happens if they ask for confidential information during these calls?
So these calls are all about sharing public information. you actually agree before the call to not share anything that's private or anything that's confidential. And it's really important that you stick to this on the call. So if they ask you anything that you either just don't feel comfortable or you feel is confidential information, feel free to politely decline and move on to the next question. They should not press you on it. They should be totally fine if you pass. But no matter what, do not share anything that's confidential. It is completely illegal to share private and confidential information. So only share what you're comfortable sharing. Stick to your guns no matter what questions they're asking. Good luck out there. Please leave any questions you have in the comments and I'll address them. If you're interested in higher paying gigs over a longer period of time, check us out at Mylance. We are a vetted community of tech consultants that are all challenging the boundaries of work, working for ourselves flexibly, and earning our true value in the market.